Well, hello and welcome. Well, you could say this week is a humanitarian week. On Monday, we looked at ladies who are being shipped off, if I may say, to the Saudi Arabias to going to be house help, and the agreement is that they will have a decent work, a decent environment, and a decent pay, and they turn up being slaves. Today, we are looking at children being shipped off, but not outside, internally. Now, that's a very tricky one because you see, we grew up in a society where we've always followed our fathers onto the farms, follow your father onto the canoe, and indeed, as a boy, it was such a privilege if your father would say, look, come on the canoe and let's go fishing, and it has been normal. And there were families that would move around. Your uncle is in Kumasi, therefore you go and live with your uncle. Your auntie is in Cape Coast, go and live with your auntie. So we've always had this traditional interrelation living together. But then the world moved on, where we were no more agrarian as we were supposed to be, and now we become, all, if I may say, book long. We're writing, reading, and adding up. And it's become a law that every child under 18 should, basic school is compulsory, so therefore you should be in school. However, our culture of living and working with children seems to have stayed. But it's taken a different dimension where poverty and ignorance has set in. And as I speak to you now, I don't know what the numbers are, but between maybe 1.5 million to 2 million children in Ghana today, 2017, are in some sort of slavery, with a majority of them being around the Volta River fishing. The big question is, do we sit back and consider some of them as well? It's just following the same old tradition of living with an adult and learning and trade and moving on? Or do we lump them all up and say, nope, so far as you are under 18 and you're doing this job, then indeed you are a slave. But either way, every country's future is in it today. So if you look at the children today, what future do we guess for our country? This country must protect children. Today we are looking at indeed child slavery and child trafficking in Ghana. My name is Nana Ansakwa, the fourth chief of the Little Republic of Akonimo Dumasa, which is just by the Volta Lake where all these things are happening. Very sad. We're going to talk about it. Don't go. I'm coming back. Well, thank you very much. Child trafficking in Ghana with me in the studio. First time appearance, so you know the culture. I'm Bantam Sanshi. We're going to find here a bottle of something. Now we're all becoming Christians. We're going to find a bottle of holy water or something. We're going to scrap the gin and everything. So we have Madame Elizabeth Akombiri, who's a principal labor officer, Ministry of Employment and Labor. So this falls right within her jurisdiction to tell us what's happening, how we stop it. Madam Elizabeth, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then, no stranger to the show, Bright Appiah, Executive Director, Child Rights International, and Board Member for Global Campaign for Education, right up my street. All the things that are my pet subject and I'm passionate about. Bright, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Elizabeth, let me start with you. When we say, maybe like child labor, and we're in Ghana, what exactly do we mean? Where do we draw the line between, a child who cannot wait for it to be Saturday so they can follow their dad on the boat? And indeed, if my dad ever had a boat, I would love to go on the boat with my father and whatever he's fishing or whatever he's doing, do some. So that we can cut out those who are following daddy for hobby and those who are, not following daddy for, because the numbers, about 2 million, it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yes, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And just as you said, I work with the Labor Department under the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations. And when we talk about child labor, usually with the definitions, we have people arguing. But what we want to say is that it is not every work that children do that is classified as child labor. Child labor is when the activity that the child is undertaking has an effect on the child's education, the physical growth, and then the health. These three things, you look at it. And usually there are determinants to the definition. It could be house chores, which will not be child labor. It could be the same house chores and will still be child labor. Because this time we are saying that children must be in school. So when the child is working during school hours, we consider it as child labor, no matter how little it is. Because the other children are in school learning whilst that child is working. The circumstances under which the child is working should be considered. The age of the child should be considered before you can define something as child labor. And we know we are talking about age 18 being under age 18 you are a child, and we have three categories of the ages. The definitions in the Children's Act and in the conventions, the ILO conventions are saying that at age 13 you can do light work. That is what we are talking about, maybe going with your parents, helping them in the house, going with your parents to the farm or their businesses where you are under supervision and you just help with something little. That one at age 13 you can do it. At age 15, the child can be legally employed. That is when we assume that the child might have completed JHS, and for one reason or the other, he's not able to continue. So you can go into apprenticeship, you can learn some trade, and you can do some work under supervision. And age 18 onwards, you are an adult and you can work. So these are the three categories, and then you look at the determinants, and then you can find what is child labor and what is not child labor.
Right. You know, Ghana is one country that as soon as there's a treaty going, I mean, if you write treaty, even before you write whatever treaty it is, we'll have officials there ready to sign it. And we've signed all these treaties. And, you know, probably this is the reason why we are claiming unemployment, because these are all children who could. Today I was looking for a carpenter. I mean, I was calling people to call people to call people to call people just to look for a carpenter. I mean, eventually we got two. One had a boil, the other one can make it tomorrow. Carpenter. So is it that we've borrowed rules from abroad where they probably are not lacking certain things and we've just handicapped it on us and we are stuck and can't move, you know? So we don't have the facilities to care for the kids. We don't have enough schools for the kids to go, yet we have rules to say, well, if you don't go to the school, you are breaking the rule. And well, there's no school to go. I mean, are we trapped somewhere in between there?
Yeah, well, I think that partly some of the issues that we face will be attributed to that. And some too, I think that they are legitimate call because it's a global concern. So no matter how you look at it, you need to address the needs of children. Most of the treaties that we've signed and the conventions that we've signed in relation to protecting the right of children, Ghana is one of the countries that have never raised any observation about those conventions. For instance, when the Convention on the Right of the Child was opened up, one of the things that countries did was to raise observation in those reports, so that to say that, okay, ABCD, I'm committed to the cause of the convention, but ABCD, I'm not committed to it, which we are the only country that did not raise any objection, which concludes that, yes, we admit that we would want to live the spirit and the letter of those conventions. And we went further to sign and then ratified it. So once you've ratified the document, it becomes a domestic thing, which means that within your local system, you accept the principles and you can work with it. So that is where we are now. But there's also issue with how we run some of these things, because if you look at most of the policies, they are based on the principle of welfare, you know, and where you go and there's a strong welfare system, systems are working to that effect to ensure that they provide services for children. when you look at for instance, you look at the juvenile justice system of the United States, once you enter the facility, there's a court in that building, there's a cell in that building, there's a doctor, a medical doctor in that building, there is also a social welfare officer in that building, a probation officer, a clinical psychologist. All of them are in the building. So once the child enters that building, all services will be provided for that child before the child steps out of that facility. So that is a classical definition that they can give to a welfare system. So if you look at their system and you feel that you want to practice something like that, then you should be prepared to leave some of the things that they are also living. Otherwise, you just hang the system. You know, just look at even the issue of child labor. One of the things, just as she said, looking at the circumstances, and we have defined it in the context of four areas. Education is one. When the child becomes economically gainful is also one. At a certain age to the family is one. When it has a health implication on the child. And then even the issue of the 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. where there's a law that says that when children work within 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., the activity of the child can amount to child labor. So what it means is that if we have put all these things in place, then we have to have the corresponding facilities to ensure that we support these children. Because one of the things that parents give in doing so is because of poverty. And if you look at the child cannot wait to document that we passed in 1993, one of the things that the state said that we will not allow poverty to be a hindrance or to be a means of which people will begin to exploit children and all that. So it means that the state itself commit to that. So if a parent is poor, then the state must step in to provide that services. And that is what, for me, we are not doing. That is why you see a lot of people asking their children to help them in the farm. And one of the things that have also been very difficult for us to deal with has to do with what child work is and what light work is. You know, people tend to mix the two together, so it makes it very difficult. Elsewhere, in terms of the laws, where we borrowed our laws from and all that, even the development of our law is also based on a certain premise and all that. So they clearly stated the work that a child can do that can be classified as child labor or even slavery, you know, and then work that a child can do that is just more like supporting or beneficial to the child and all that. We have listed some of the work, but some of the work that they have listed in the Children's Act, to some extent, can even amount to child labor. So the question is, how do parents measure the extent to which they can go with our children when it comes to the social interaction and all that? So these are pertinent issues that we are raising, but no matter how it is, there are certain work that we prohibit that children should not do, irrespective of whether we borrow the law from elsewhere or not. Work that is hazardous is a global concern. You know, therefore, work that is hazardous, we will not allow children to do and all that. So this is where we are now in terms of how we have domesticated our laws and how we are practicing it, and then the deficit that we have and the issue that we have to deal with.
Madam, is there anywhere in the law where, you know, like the children of today are seen as a future? Is there a policy like that? Because we've always grown up with children being sort of automatic second-class citizens or an afterthought. You know, children are not, I don't know whether it's our culture or, you know, but somehow we have adopted it where children are not on the forefront. Is there somewhere in our policy that, you know, we are made aware that, look, you're looking at the future? So if he's on a boat, hanging on the boat, jumping in the water, well, that's the future. I mean, that's it. He's not going to invent a rocket. He's going to grow up and further jump, probably dive deeper into the water. Is there a policy that is going to make us aware that these are our future?
Yes. Even our Constitution talks about it. Our Constitution, Section 28(2), says that children should not be engaged in exploitative work. And the Children's Act talks about it. The issue of Ghana is we have a comprehensive legal framework for dealing with child labor, child trafficking, and all that. But enforcement has been our problem. we see child labor, child trafficking, some aspect of it as social issues. Sometimes they argue if a parent is using the child, then you come across this parent, you withdraw the child, and you imprison the parent who takes care of the child and all that. Because when you look at even our national institutions that are supposed to protect these children, that are supposed to have shelters and places where the children can be in these situations, they are not well resourced and they are few. When you go out on, yesterday there was, we were celebrating the World Day Against Child Labor. We're talking about how we want to protect all children. And the question was, we are here now. As we leave, we will not drive up to a mile. We'll come across children on the street. What do we do? Because you say we should take action now. And we're like, because we will actually find the children on the street. When you pick them right there, where do you place them? So the issue is the enforcement of our laws. Government will have to set up to get the institutions in place, well-resourced, to be able to take care of these children, to protect them when they are rescued. And then perpetrators must be prosecuted. Because if perpetrators are not prosecuted, it goes on. You've committed a crime. You have been caught in the act. You are not punished. You can go back to it. They only take your child, go and enroll the child in school, give some support for some time, and then when probably the project ends, some of the children go back. And the parents or the perpetrators are left free because we consider it as a social issue. And this is one of the reasons why our fight, though we are making progress, it looks like there are some impediments that are not giving us
right. I can imagine stop child labor, and it works like Stop Galamsey. So all these fishing boats and everybody says, yep, that's it. All these 2 million kids go back to where you came from. There'll be a mass burial.
Of course. It also
they just won't starve.
Yes, it also demonstrates that our social safety net is weak. Therefore, if you are not careful and you pile a lot of them in our social safety net, the net will break. That is what it is. But the issue is that it should not be so. Because if we have realized that we have a very weak social safety net, then what the state needs to do is to empower the community to do the right thing. Because once they do that, then it means that you not have a lot of children within the social safety net, and which also means that once you have made policies, you have to drive the policy. How do you drive it? You'd have to ensure that at least there's resources available, because social implications are also having economic bearing, So we cannot take it for granted. We may think that it's a social issue, but it affects us economically. The example is that when children become productive at their early stages, from maybe 15 to 18, 25, they become less productive when they are 30 and above. And these are the times that you need these people to work for this country in order to gain whatever you want to. But they become less productive. So it will have economic implication on that. That is why you will see a lot of people doing courses, just want to be in the offices and all that. But in an industrialized area, you see a lot of people going into even carpentry and all that and all this. But now, people don't want to do that because they feel that it's not something that can earn them a living. But that is where the money is, So we have to define the environment clearly in terms of how we want to drive these policies. We started in 1989. We came to 1993, came to 2008, 2003, and then even in 2014, 2015, we passed the Child and Family Welfare Policy and then the Justice for Children Policy. The unit have also developed the NPA2, where they want to work with the National Plan for the elimination of child labor. Yes, they've developed the NPA1. We've not seen the assessment of the NPA1, how it went, how it was implemented, but now we have NPA2. And now they are calling all of us to take action. And for me, the question that I'm even asking is that, what is the cost? What is it going to cost the state to implement even the NPA and all that? So these are the questions that we need to ask. Otherwise, we will create a lot of social problems that our social safety net cannot handle.
But let me
Yes.
this. I think when you were on the show the other last week, we raised it with the population growth.
Yes.
So here we are. We can deal with this if, assuming all these fishermen and farmers decided that, well, we're going to be patriotic. That's it. Everybody under 13 go home. We can handle it as of now, but it's still going on, and the rate at which the population is growing, and the class and the poverty and the expansion at that level, have we factored this all in the NPA and all these plans that we are talking about?
Yeah, well, what I have seen with the NPA, especially when it comes to child labor, I've not looked at it in terms of matching it with the population growth. It's basically the activities that they want to do and all that. But the population is a very big issue in this country, because I was looking at the figures. Between 10 years, from 2000 up to 2010, the growth rate of this country was 30.4%. And for me, it is huge.
Best thing at the seams.
Exactly. So it also means that if you are not able to do certain things in 2010 2000 to lay down the foundation, then it means that all the growth is also consuming what is already there. So if you have about 5 million children being involved in child labor, you are not able to address their needs, then the number will double up. That is why you'd have these huge numbers, because the state is making effort. The truth is that the state is committing resources to deal with the issue. But because we are also not paying attention to our population growth, the number keep on doubling, and people still find the need to send children. That is why you realize that even from 2000 up to date, we still have the number pegged at the same level. For instance, you will see the 1.8 was done by the population census. The 1.9 was done by the Ghana Living Standard Survey. Yeah. And then the Tulane report also pegged it at 1.8. So which means that, so the issue is all the investment that the civil society is making in that sector, that of government and all that, how are we measuring those effects and all that? So, and it has a bearing on the population, because the population is growing at a faster rate. And if you are not able to halt it, things will happen, which will break the whole social protection system.
My worry is that it's not growing in East Legon and the airport.
Exactly.
It's growing
in the rural communities.
In rural communities where the economy is not that strong. So you from labor, you must have a headache, because it's not directly your responsibility to, probably go and educate on population growth. But is there some, collaboration between you and somebody who go and educate on fertility to try and reduce it?
Yeah, with the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations, there's a national steering committee in place, but we don't have the population on board. We had health on board, but should I say they dropped out at a point, because during the signing of MOUs under NPA 1, they did not sign their MOU, and we went on inviting them for meetings, and they never showed up. So it means for now, health is not on the steering committee, but we have all other stakeholders that have the mandate to protect children on the steering committee and its subcommittees. And that is how we work in collaboration, because child labor is said that one institution cannot fight it. For the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations, we play a purely coordinating role. We are to coordinate what all other agencies are doing. So if we don't bring them on board, we'll not be able to fight the menace.
I think I had the boss of the National Population Council on board. And the stats he gave us was that, we are increasing by 2,000 a day, 200 pop their clock. Yeah. And so at the end of the year, the average growth is 800,000 on a yearly basis. And 800,000, small percentage is in cantonment areas.
And it even means that out of every year, half of this population are young. Yeah. Because the statistics show that persons below the age of 19 years are 48% of the total population of this country. So our population is very young, and most of them goes through all kinds of difficulties. The school dropout rate is very, very high.
There's a lot of dependency.
Exactly. So, And there's a little resource in the system for us to manage. So if you are not able to control that aspect, then we're going to have problems in this country. That is why even the effort that we put in is as if you are fetching water and putting in a basket.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that a lot of NGOs are putting in money, especially when it comes to the buying companies, those who buy the cocoa and all that. Because of the certification program that they have, they do all these kinds of services. But the state must also be interested in regulating that sector, because it is crucial. That will determine as to how we want to even manage the little resources that we have. Elsewhere, they've done it. You know, they will close the gates. You know, probably you give birth maybe 2, 3 a year, and if there's extra, there are consequences that will come with it. And if they realize that you cannot elsewhere, they will take the child from you and then cater for that child, so that child do not become a burden on you. Elsewhere, they will not even allow you to go to extent of giving more than 2 and all that. You know, so these are measures, because once you want to grow the economy, these are some of the steps that you have to take. You need to also regulate the social environment. Otherwise, when your production level is going down and you are increasing social problems, then of course the little resources will be consumed by the social issue, and you don't have any for development. Teachers, for instance, the budget of Ministry of Education pays the resource that they use to pay teachers in terms of the personnel is about 90% of the total budget of the ministry. So you ask yourself, what will be left for investment and what will be left for other things and all that. So it is time for us to look at the population and then see how we can regulate it, so that at the end of the day we are able to manage our situation, set the right goals, and then work by it. And at the level where we think that we want to increase the population, then we can open the floodgate.
So, Madam Akamari, what's in? Is it just cost? Why are there so many children in these jobs? Is it just cost that the children, work out cheaper than maybe coming to hire me? What's in bringing up? Because the numbers are a lot.
Generally, what we are saying is that poverty is the cause of child labor. But personally, I know there is poverty. But when you go deep into the issues, ignorance is part, irresponsibility on the part of parents is number one to me.
Yeah.
Because as a mother, no matter how poor you are, and you want to maintain your dignity and to see to it that the future of your child is guaranteed, you will do all that it takes, except that probably maybe you are sick, you cannot work and all that.
But in this mother who has 8 children.
Yeah.
That is the issue. The numbers too.
You can't even
the
take
numbers too. They are not checking that too. The numbers too count. So there are several. I am saying the irresponsibility is number one, but there are other issues that account for child labor. And just as you mentioned, they are giving birth to, so they are not controlling their birth. I don't know, family planning is in the system, people are doing it, but yet when you go deep down into the rural areas, some of them even think that family planning is against their culture and all that. And so they continue. You go, they cannot feed themselves, yet they are giving birth to more than 10.
I'll come back to you, but I just want, the labor ministry, when you sit down, how many jobs do you intend to create in a day to mop up all these people? And even if you were able to create it, are there skilled people to come and grab? Like I said today, I'm looking for carpenters.
Yes, it is an
and
issue.
I'm ringing and ringing and ringing. I got 2. One has a boil. So I got 1. He has to come tomorrow. Hopefully he'll turn up. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you do at the labor and employment when you're faced with this? Do you just target the few who will leave Legon and the Cape Coast universities and stuff? The larger population, what do you do?
Yes, one of the roles of labor department is school guidance and counseling. It's one of our roles where we go to the schools and talk to the children, probably in JHS 1, JHS 2, before they get to JHS 3, they know what they want to do in life. We advise them on the careers, the jobs that are available and are marketable. Because we are all looking at white-collar jobs, or in school, that's what everybody is looking out for. So when they introduced this JHS with carpentry, masonry, blah, 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 it was something that was good. But it has just faded off, and that is not happening. As you were looking for a carpenter, you didn't get, but if that program had gone on and we have a number of them trained and all that, I don't think you would have had that problem. So the issue is not probably labor not knowing what to do, but the issue is getting the children to understand and to take up the professions even before they come out of school. We have been going out to tell them that the white-collar job is not the most lucrative jobs that they should be looking out for. And we give examples where people, when they have their own vocations or skills, what they get out of it. And when you look at the private sector, they are better off than government workers. But still, this is what we are looking up to. But we are going on. You know, labor is not present in most of the districts, and that is the problem. And even in the districts where labor is, you have one officer, you have two officers. Nothing for them to work with. I joined labor, probably I shouldn't mention the year, in 1988. That was in Bolga. When I got there, the only car that was there, probably for the regional labor officer, was on rocks. The driver had to leave and look for another job because he never got the car to drive. So these are some of the things. There's the resources for the institutions to work to put things in order are not coming forth, and that is the problem. Labor is challenged greatly. Labor is challenged.
Right, are we overwhelmed, and the best thing to do is just write a policy, sign a couple of things, and say, oh yeah, we are working at it, but indeed, you know, the challenge, you know, we're overwhelmed. Even as of today, look, we can't solve the problems today, and there are more just being piled up.
We are adding up. The example is the compact that we've signed with the U.S. government in dealing with human trafficking and child labor. The state of U.S. have committed resources to that, and government is also to commit resources in dealing with that. So what we call the counterpart funding and all that. But I have not seen the commitment of the state to this policy, but we have signed that compact. And that compact put a lot of demands on us. First of all, you have to report to the U.S. door on the steps that you are taking to address the commitment that we've made in that compact. We have also signed the international adoption protocol, which is also one thing that comes with some financial commitment, which I know that the state of U.S. is also monitoring that, because most of the international
what is international adoption?
Meaning like having adopted a child from Ghana to another jurisdiction.
Okay.
That is international. We have the international adoption.
So we allow, Ghana allows it?
Yeah, we have signed. Okay. And there are certain protocols and processes that you have to go through before you allow a child to leave Ghana and all that. And all these things must be documented. You know. But the people who are supposed to do the work are not well resourced to do it. So in the past, we had a situation where they were sending children out of this country without proper documentation. And the parent cannot even trace the whereabouts of these children, because the law provides that the social welfare must monitor them to a certain level before saying that, yes, this person is qualified to have this child for the rest of his or her life and all that. And even people who can even have access to these children. We have also committed ourselves, as we speak, we have committed ourselves to that document. Then again, we have also developed the child and family welfare policy, which is putting a lot of demands on government to implement, because now the way we used to care for children and the family has changed. Now everything is not centered on government, but some roles have been given to chiefs, some roles have been given to community leaders, and even parents. Now the work rests on them. So what we need to do now is to carry the message to all these stakeholders in the process. But we passed the law, I think, in 2015, which, as of now, I cannot even say that we've even covered about 10% of the whole 216 district that we have, and even most of the communities and all that. We've also passed the Justice for Children policy, which also demands that now the policy is saying that diversion should be the ultimate in terms of how we deal with issues concerning children. So if diversion is the ultimate, then it means that you have to station people in communities who can receive these children and provide them with services in event where parents are not willing to do that. Because within the juvenile justice system, one of the things that we realize is that when a child commits offense, parents are not willing to care for the child. And the system must be there to protect these people and all that. Now, we've also started the NEPLEC program, which is a national program for the elimination of child labor. Some time back, we were on track. At the point, government failed to continue. So the issue of child labor and all that started coming down at the international level and all that. So these are commitments that we have made. And all these have failed because resources are not there to be able to drive it.
Let me take a break here, and then when I come back, because Bright is mentioning resources. I want to know exactly what we use the resources for, exactly. As in education, as in hiring police people to stand by the river and stop the children. What are we going to use the resources for? Let's go. Well, hello and welcome, and we're looking at a subject very dear to my heart. Indeed, it's one of my pet subjects, and it's the protection of children, and we're looking at child trafficking. It looks like we're overwhelmed, and we're just trying to find somewhere in the middle where we can solve this. And Bright keeps saying that, oh, the government stopped, there was no resources. Right, what are you going to use the resources for? I'll give you an example. You know, mother has 8 kids, has no income. Children are all there. You know, somebody has a boat somewhere, or somebody has a farm somewhere, and could probably give them a bit of money and take 3 of the kids away. You know, give another 3, so she's left with 2 or 1 that she can manage with. I mean, what will the resources do to such a mother?
Yeah, well, I think that if we talking about resources, I'm not only talking about the financial, the physical aspect of it, but also how we empower community to understand issues. You know, because for instance, if you're a mother, you can give birth to 8, then there's a problem. And if you cannot take care of that child, then there's a problem. So what the state can do is to ensure that you regulate such people so that they give birth to people that they can manage. You know, and there's something also within the social environment that creates some of these problems. You would introduce things that prevent pregnancy and HIV and other transmitted diseases and all that. But in the rural community, it's very expensive for them to acquire some of these things. You go now, the cost of condom is not affordable for somebody who is in a rural community. And you cannot also put a measure as to the extent to which people can exercise their emotions. So if it happens that way, what do you think would happen in that situation? People just carry out and do this. So the system itself must find ways and means to make life comfortable for people to have access to certain things that can control their behavior. In that manner, then we can say that if you have 4 children, you will be able to do it. And if you are not even able to do it and can do 2, then the state will take up the 2 and then care for the services of all these children. So regulation is very important, because anywhere in the world, one of the things that they do is to regulate the social protection system. They want to regulate that. That is why when a child is truant, maybe in the United States of America, the state will not allow the child to stay with the mother, because the state is interested in rehabilitating the child to be a normal person in society. So if they realize that as a mother, you have surrendered your right as a mother, the state will take that responsibility from you and give it to somebody else who they think is better off placed to do that. But in our system, it's very difficult for us to do that because of these population issues that and all. There's probation officers that we have in this country. I don't think that they'll be even up to 100. The whole of Ghana. Social welfare used to have 1 clinical psychologist. I don't know whether he's still there. You know, so if you don't have all these people stationed at certain places to offer certain services, you will be compounding the issue and then breeding more issues and all that. So the resource is also about empowerment. You know, we alluded to the fact that poverty is the underlying factor of all this. And one of the things that is also dangerous, which is also a social protection issue, has to do with the fact that some women whose husbands are fisher folks do not want their husbands to go and hire people to work for them, with the fear that they will begin to have an affair with those people. So they rather prefer that their husbands engage their children and other children. So beyond the issue of poverty, beyond the issue of cheap labor, people also, with their own feelings, design the lifestyle of people in the community, which affects children. So as a nation, you need to investigate some of these things and put them in a proper perspective to control it, because in this country, issues about children is law. So if the state realizes that I cannot provide the alternative and parent cannot also do the normal service, then I need to regulate that sector to be able to give me the capacity to deal with all these issues in the process. But we have made the system loose. People can give birth at any time that they want. We have made the system loose to the extent that people can use children for whatever they want to use them for. And when they are out of hand, it is now that it comes to the state to repair them. But even the state, UNICEF have even carried out a research to know the cost of treating one particular child in this country when the child goes to child abuse cases. For instance, if you pick the child labor sector, if you'd want to administer a single dose, a single treatment to a child, it will cost you about 517,000 Ghana cedis to administer one treatment to a child. And if you talk about a treatment, we are talking about all these services, getting the social welfare officer to work on the child, getting a medical officer to work on the child, a clinical psychologist, and other services that the child will need to make the child whole. You will need that amount. And if you are...
What's the amount again?
517,000 to repair one child.
Dollars or cedis?
Cedis. Then if you are looking at it, because there are some psychological effects that children have that would take them more than 5 years.
When they say treatment, what period do they look over?
Yeah, for the single treatment is to put the child on the treatment and then treat the child to a level where you think the child is okay. That is a single treatment. And then there's a lifetime treatment that you give to the child. And that lifetime treatment can be from about 2 years going, because there are certain things that children go through that are child protection issues that you cannot even use a year to repair these children. Some can take about 5 years, some can even take 10 years, and some can even take the lifetime of the person to be able to repair the child. And in that instance, if you want to repair a single child, the money that the state requires to do that is between 1.4 million to 1.8 million Ghana cedis to be able to do that. So when you weigh it from the other side of it, it is not an option that the state needs to go to, that you allow. So let's assume that we have about 5 million children who have been abused, or even let's do the child labor figure, that about 1.9 million children. Multiply the 1.9 million children by even the 517,000 and see the amount that the state will require to give a single treatment to these children. So these are things, that's why I'm saying that our social protection net is so weak that we cannot keep bringing a lot of children in that net. But we should look at preventive issues to ensure that, one, we control the population that we have in this country. We control the activities of parents. Because one of the things that we have also realized in the process is that most of the abuse that happens to children comes within the family, and children suffer because they are close to them. And the wonderful thing, or the surprising thing that I even found out in the process is that when it comes to corporal punishment, mothers are the most that administer corporal punishment to children than
the fathers.
Than the fathers. So you cannot even just take the family system for granted. You need to open it up as a state, to investigate it, to correct any anomaly that exists in it, so that you will not have a lot of children coming to the rehabilitation center for correction and all that. But once you open it up for people to do all kinds of things that they want to do, then you will begin to have all these figures growing, and then at a point we may lose our ability to deal with the issues.
Madam Akonberi, for what we face now, could it be that we tweak the policy a bit, set up labor in every community so that if I have children and I'm going to give it to that fisherman, it goes through the labor and say, look, he's going to that man, so that maybe they can monitor to make sure that he goes to school or he does something. Because if we go this blanket, follow America, in America they don't do it, so we can't do it, then we are lying. So, I mean, can we now, while we are trying to slow down the population, say, well, if your child wants to go to fishing or farming, at least we know that there are 20 children on the water lake here, and that once every month, we go and check to make sure they went to school, and there's some skills transfer is being happening. They know how to fish, they know how to mend nets. I don't know. So that while we are decreasing the population, I'm just throwing suggestions.
The child labor unit was established under the Labor Department because of its inspections rules. We go on inspections to workplaces. We are supposed to inspect work sites, even homes. But as I said, the numbers, very few. You go to a district, you have only one person there, and no means for the person to move and do the inspections. So the institutions and the offices that are just around the office is what they do. And how many times can they do that? They just do it for a few years, and I think they relax and have to go back again. Because if you go to one institution every year, they even ask, what are you looking for?
Which auntie?
What are you looking for? But they are not able to go to...
In the Allied to the Children's Act, it gives a clear way of we doing that. And I believe that is why is one of the mandates of the child labor unit, where the law provides that children from 15 years going can be employed. But the condition under which they should work should not be hazardous to their health. And one of the things that the Allied to the Children's Act call for is inspection. That even before the labor officer goes to that workplace, the employer must have a record book for any person who is below the age of 18 years working in that environment. So what the labor officer must do is go and check what time did the child come to work, and what time is the child closing, and what time is the child working. Then also inspect the facility to see whether there are certain places that are being classified as hazardous, and whether or not children have access to those environments. And if they are not having them, they are having access to it. Is there any protective clothing or anything of a sort? That would also reduce the kind of effect that they will have and all that. All these things have been spelled out. But again, the issue has to do with whether the state recognize the importance of this, because I know that there's a lot of factories that have engages the services of children that we don't even care about. One of the things that I can say is that those who produce bread, they engage the services of young people. I mean, I don't have any figures to say that they are below the age of 15 years, but at least they engage the service of young people who maybe are above 15 years and below 18 years. And they have to meet all these requirements before they can even start operations and all that. But we don't care. We don't care.
Can we manage it? Can we solve it? Can we do anything about it? Or we just have to, talk about it? I mean, at the moment, I think we just have to talk about it.
We have to talk about it as we are talking about it. But we are also asking that the labor department should be resourced to work. Even with the few numbers that we have, if we are resourced to work, I think we can do something. Social welfare is also present in most, they are present in almost all the districts.
It's one of the most decentralized institutions.
And they are not resourcing them as well. When you look at the government institutions that have the mandate to protect children, that is what is happening.
Does it come back to my question where, children are automatic second-class citizens? Is this still...
Everybody, that is how we look at children. Even with the conduct of a driver,
even in the house,
crossing the street, should tell you something that we don't care about children. In schools, when a child is going through difficulties, teachers do not care to even find out why the child is behaving the way he or she is behaving. Even at home, when children come home and ask you certain questions that borders on reproductive health, the conduct of parent towards them clearly shows that no, we don't have interests of children at heart. So it's a societal issue. Gradually, government, who is supposed to provide the alternative, also behave the same way when it comes to the budget allocation. Nothing to talk about to the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection, and even the little that they get, how they spend it is also another, the releases and all that. The whole social welfare department for the past 5 years have not even received the administrative money to even run the social welfare department, even at the district level. So you ask yourself, these people have been mandated by law to work in a manner to protect our children. And if you don't resource them, how do they work?
All too soon, that's what time would allow us. Very sad story, very grim story. But I hope that somewhere, in between our goings and comings, we will find the resource to empower those who can do. So at least we can start stemming the problem and gradually bringing it down. Because pure and simple, children are our future. And there's so many, so much bricks you can put on your wall. It will get to some time you can't climb, build it high anymore. And when the poor have nothing to eat, they will eat the rich. So let's just pay attention to that. I want to say thank you very much to Elizabeth Akomberi, Principal Labor Officer, Ministry of Employment and Labor. You're welcome. And thank you to Brian Appiah, Executive Director, Child Rights International, Board Member of Global Campaign for Education. Brad, you're welcome and thank you. And to you at home, I always give you this number. It's 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. Tantis Fashions, they make my shirts for me for the show, so give them a call and get yourself a nice made in Ghana shirt. Tomorrow back to do this all over again. Thank you very much for watching.